Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. Spring practice is in full effect, full force. Damon has been out there for a few of the practices, and you've seen a lot from Sam Leavitt, and we talked about that a lot last week. What more have you seen from him since we talked about it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just a full control of the offense from Sam Leavitt at this point. You know, a lot of the quotes coming out of Marcus Arroyo today are things like he just has such a command of the offense as far as the checks he's making pre-snap and getting guys in position. It feels like anytime you look at the group going through team drills and when they're in the 11-on-11 setting, that Sam is getting guys where they need to be and making sure that everyone's on the same page before the snap. And I think it just is something we could have never seen from Sam even 3 games into last season. We've talked about that jump he made with the Kansas game and the bye weeks and the injury and the steps he took there. And for him to just have a mental grasp of Arroyo's offense and a full command of it as a leader, I think is maybe the most important thing for this team this year.
Yeah, Jesse, and we saw him last week on Thursday when he was at Chase Field throwing out the first pitch. He just looked like he kind of belonged in front of a crowd of about 50,000 people. He looked like he belonged on that stage, and I think that is something that we saw last year, not only in the Big 12 championship game, but also the Peach Bowl. It doesn't look like the moment necessarily gets to him. It looks like he thrives off of stuff like that.
He's definitely calm, cool, and collected. And I want to go back to something Damon said last week that I noticed while I was at Chase Field for opening day, is that he definitely does look bulked up, and I think that's going to help him as far as avoiding injuries because he's definitely a guy again that doesn't really slide very much. So he definitely looks like a bigger dude out there, and that was cool to see. And it was cool to just see. It was cool to see all 4 of the guys out there throw out the first pitch, and then Kenny with the trophy. It was a very fun moment. The
CJ fight and Leavitt had some trouble throwing out the pitch.
Yeah, they throw an interestingly shaped ball, and the baseball is more of a normal shaped ball, and so it
looked like Jordan Tyson and 100-yard landlord seemed to have played some baseball in there.
Jordan Tyson, I think, is one of those guys that you throw him at any sport, anywhere, and he's going to be good at it. I think you could put him in soccer, hockey, whatever you want to do.
Lacrosse,
Jordan Tyson, lacrosse.
Put him on the hardwood.
Yeah, his brother plays in the NBA. Like, I think he's one of those guys that's just an athlete.
Badminton. No, but let's get back to the Sam Leavitt conversation because we talked about a little bit about his targets last week in terms of wide receivers, but we didn't touch necessarily on the tight end group. We know about Shimon Mateer and what he did last year and what he can bring to the table. Some new guys coming in that need to step up behind Mateer. What have you seen from them in the first week of practice last week?
Guys that you can be excited about. I'll tell you right now. First of all, you mentioned Mateer. Obviously, he's coming off second-team All-Conference last year in his first year in the offense. And they bring in Kentucky transfer Kamari Anderson, who looks like maybe the most Adonis player on the team, if you want to categorize it by that. He just looks huge. A lot of the talk pre-camp was he was one of the standouts in all the workouts and things like that. And then behind both of them, they've got a true freshman in A.J. Ia, who I think could be the most impactful true freshman on the team. We've talked about his size at 6'6", 255 pounds as a true freshman. Ridiculous size as a tight end. And his movement skills are incredible. There was one play on the first week of camp when he just bulldozes a media member after a one-on-one, just totally playing through to the end zone, which is what he should do. Obviously, we in the media were too close. And I think A.J. Ia just has an incredible skill set as someone who is that big, who can move as well as he does and make catches like he can. He's talked to us about being a vertical threat in the offense. And I think that, they're just in a position to really dominate the tight end room. And Jason Mons, the position coach, has gotten a ton of credit. And, he's got a couple of the biggest commits in the future is our tight ends. And so I think it's just really in a good position right now.
Jesse, I wanted to say that's the next evolution of Arroyo's offense, is getting the tight ends involved, getting the secondary receivers involved. Not necessarily, and we talked about this before, not necessarily just in the pass game, but also in the blocking schemes as well.
I love the tight end position. It's one of my favorite positions in football. It's the security blanket for the quarterback. Shaman last year was very good. Obviously second team Big 12. This year, I think he could be first team. I think that he might be one of the best tight ends in the nation this year. That's how good I see his, growth going this year. And then to have depth at the position, which we saw them have last year. I mean, it didn't really jump out very much, but with Marquiston Douglas, he was there as like a blocking tight end and did a lot of stuff in the blocking that might not have been seen on, that you might not have noticed, but he was in there doing things. So to have a big tight end that replaces him, that's good for ASU. And I hope that they can really feature the tight end more this year, because it's something, again, like I mentioned, it's a security blanket, and they're going to have to look for more than just Jordan Tyson this year. And why not make the tight end? I mean, it works for the Arizona Cardinals with Trey McBride.
You were going to find a way to bring him into this.
I love Trey McBride. Shout out to him for getting his extension. But it works for the Cardinals with Trey McBride. It's just whenever like a play collapses or whatever, it just seems like if you have an elite tight end, he's just right there waiting for it. And that's what I think the ASU should look to do.
Yeah, and I hope the next evolution of this offense is not only getting the secondary receivers involved outside of Jordan Tyson, but also getting the tight end group more involved as well, whether it be in the run game and the pass game as well. Now onto the secondary. We saw a little bit of Bimage last year on this team, and now there's a bunch of new guys, whether it be the two Purdue transfers that are coming into this team. What do you expect from these guys, and what have you seen from them in the first week, Damon?
So I think the first thing to establish, of course, is that the starting corners from last year, Javen Robinson and Keith Abney, they're both back.
Beasts.
And they both look really good. But behind them, I think they're going to have a little bit more depth than they had last year. You mentioned Bimage. He's made some plays here, especially in the one-on-ones that they do. And, the Purdue guys, like you talked about, Nyland Green and Kendrick Breedlove, whether they turn out to be in contention for a nickel spot or not, I think that they can have an impact on this defense, especially as I believe they want to be a little more, fresh and keep guys rotating in, especially in the secondary where they weren't able to do it a ton last year. And so I think that that's going to be a big thing for this defense.
They ended up having to in the Peach Bowl.
Right. And so just for them to have that luxury where they're regularly rotating in and keeping guys fresh, I think that's going to make a big difference.
What do you think about the secondary, Jesse, just in general, and what, it's from what we've seen from this team and the growth in the secondary, it's always been a question mark in terms of year over year, what are we going to expect? But with the guys coming back and how well they played down the stretch last season, you have to be pretty confident in the group coming back.
Yeah, I'm very confident in the guys coming back. I think that the guys from Purdue are guys who were kind of bright spots on a really terrible Purdue team.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll be energized to being here on a good team. And I think it's not going to be one of these groups where I come in this year, I'm like, oh, I'm really worried. The only really thing that I'm worried about with this ASU football team is getting after the quarterback. I just want to see it.
And protecting the quarterback. And just I've wanted to see them get bigger on the offensive line, which I believe Kenny talked about on Tuesday, how they've gotten a lot bigger since he came in here. Yeah.
And so,
they were at a point 2 years ago where they didn't have enough guys to practice on the offensive line.
Yeah,
so,
but I'd love to see them have like one of these offensive lines that's 300 pounders,
Mm-hmm.
One of these that can really, really stack up with the SEC teams, because that, in my opinion, if they had just a slightly bigger or better offensive line last year, they would have beaten Texas and maybe handled them.
Yeah. So we talked about two of the groups that we think we're most confident in for ASU coming into this season. And that doesn't stop here with the running back group, Damon. Obviously, media talked to Kyson Brown the other day. We'll get your thoughts on what he said the other day. But in terms of, the growth and what you've seen at practice from the 4 or 5 guys even that are fighting for spots on this team and fighting for snaps on this team, how can someone from this group really elevate themselves or, away from the rest of the pack? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this was one of my questions to Kenny Dillingham on Tuesday, was he isn't really set in one way of I want a featured back or I would like to have it be by committee. He said that he's going to take it either way, whichever way gives them the best chance to win, which is obviously the right process. And I think that just given the amount of talent in that room and the depth of talent in that room, I think that it's gonna just end up being a little bit by committee. Maybe Kyson and Kanye kind of separate themselves a little bit, but I think that for the most part, I think that it's just guys that all can play the position well and in the system that ASU asks of its running backs. One of the things that Kyson told me was, the amount of passing and pass catching that the running backs have to do, I think is so huge, especially when you're talking about Kanye, who's coming over from 2 catches and 3 yards.
Yeah.
His whole Army career, I think it's a huge wake-up call for him, especially.
Well, you saw it with the offense last year. Even when Scadaboo would come off the field, Kyson Brown would be a threat in the receiving game as well. So, yep. I mean, I totally understand, teaching the guys this early in the offseason, hey, you're going to have to catch the ball out of the backfield. You're going to need to learn where you have to go, positional awareness, stuff like that. I think that's key to the offseason, obviously, with this group.
Yeah, and Kyson also mentioned that Sam has been so good at getting the running backs in position in where they need to be, like we talked about with the command of the offense. He has been there getting guys where they need to be.
I think that they will have a running back by committee system this year. I said that I want to see that last week, but it's another thing that I kind of have to see to believe, just because we've seen with Sean Aguano, he just kind of likes his guy and likes to run with his guy, except for when they had Chip Trainum and Rashad White for a very brief amount of time. That was a dynamic duo, and I would like to see that happen again, and I think this is the year to do it. So that's what I'm hoping will happen. I just got to see it.
And last thing before we move on to basketball, and I know burying the lead a little bit with the basketball program, but in terms of what you're saying about running back by committee, when you look at this group, if there is a guy that's having a good game, will this team be able to just say, enough with the running back by committee, we're riding this guy for the rest of this game?
I don't think that's hard with Aguano. Like I mentioned, he seems to like to ride his guy.
But it also, it came to... they just kept handing it to Scadaboo in the Peach Bowl, and it ended up working, right?
But
if they get to a point of like one of those guys out of gas, you have to be, you have to understand that the guys behind him are going to be just as good.
Jeremy just really wants to see Jason Brown play a lot.
That's part of it. I think Jason Brown is going to be a really good player in the future here at ASU, but yeah, I think just having the awareness on the sideline, whether you're Coach Dillingham, Coach Aguano, Coach Arroyo, to say we're riding this guy because he's having himself a game, I think it's going to be interesting to see throughout the entire season.
Also, I think, it'll be interesting to see if all of these guys stay here past spring practice, because I think that there's so many quality backs that could probably get playing time at another school. I feel like one of them, it would be a good decision for one of them to.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah,
to have all of these guys that you can trust with the ball on any given down on the football field. So
yeah,
it's a good problem to have, a problem that we haven't seen at ASU in quite some time. So, but yeah.
I thought it was the problem last year, and then Scadaboo was like, "Oh, I'm a Heisman Trophy contender."
So let's move on to basketball. Speaking of problems, men's basketball team has lost some guys into the portal. The most recent one, obviously, being Austin Nunez today. Let's just go down the list. Quaintance, he tore his ACL. That is now confirmed and had surgery. Jesse was right about that.
He was not right, however, about the not playing all year next year. Father expects him to be cleared for contact by September. So
Jesse said he expected him to play possibly in December.
Yeah, I still think that 6 months recovery for an ACL injury is pretty quick, and I would hope for his sake that he does not come back in 6 months. Just as being a Washington Commanders fan, seeing what happened when Robert Griffin III came back so quickly from his ACL tear, I thought that he rushed back too quickly, and it really ruined his career, kind of. And I just think the best thing to do here with this kid, because he's just so good, is to just make sure that he's on 100% when he comes back. But I digress, because he's most likely not going to be playing for ASU.
Yeah, so he's in the portal. Sannon
exploring the portal.
No, he's in.
He's
in. Okay.
Yeah. Sannon is at St. John's.
Johnny.
Yeah, he's already enrolled, I believe.
He's the R.J. Lewis replacement. Yep.
Yeah. Sean Phillips is in the portal, someone that we thought was going to stick it out through the rest of his collegiate career, is back in the portal after being in the portal last year, coming from LSU to ASU.
Well, was in the portal 2 years ago. Yeah.
And then you got Bashir Jihad, which he is exploring the portal, hoping that he can get that 5th year of eligibility that is being voted on by the NCAA this summer. There's a possibility that you can get a grad transfer year even if you played 4 years, and he played in 29 games or something in his freshman year. So he normally would not be able to do that, but he's hoping that he gets an extra year of eligibility.
I really don't know how I feel about that. I feel like after you've played your full 4 years that you should probably move on and give opportunities to newcomers that might be coming in. So I don't know how I feel about that
BJ
one.
Freeman, Austin Nunez, as I recently, or as I just said at the beginning of this, Bryson Long, and then Brandon Gardner, all in the portal.
8 of them.
8. Something that we've come to expect from Bobby Hurley teams.
Yep.
And is also how many scholarship players are left.
Well, let's see.
It's 8.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
How many scholarships do they have, Damon?
I think they get 12 total.
Okay. So, 6 left?
4.
4 left.
12 minus 8 is 4.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
And you're
at ASU education.
journalism school. Yeah.
And are you including the new guys in that number?
Yes.
Okay, because
the transfers and freshmen are all included in that 8.
yes, because my opinion on this, and it's every year. I'm tired of it.
It's every school, though.
I don't think that's true.
No,
I don't think that's true. It's not every school. Not every school is losing 8 players.
The only like one where you can say is St. John's.
Cover this.
yes, but St. John's lost one of its best players, but it's because Patino didn't play him in the game that they lost.
No, it's because Lewis is declaring for the draft.
Yeah, but
he's also entering the portal.
He's also entering
That's
the portal.
what a lot of people do. It's procedural.
Yeah.
But anyway, the amount of transfers that ASU has every year either means their NIL with the men's basketball program is terrible, which I
is
don't
not
think,
true because they have James Harden.
I don't think it is.
We've noticed that and that's been reported on. They have James Harden.
Yeah,
He's not the only reason they have good NIL, though.
Okay.
Part of it.
Well, anyway, you're saying right now they have good NIL. So there's really only one other conclusion, is that they don't like playing here, and they don't like playing for Bobby Hurley.
They don't like losing.
They don't like losing, yeah, which tends to happen when your system isn't the best, and I don't. And maybe it's the arena. They don't like playing there. Maybe it's the lack of student support this year, because I'm the students were honestly was the worst I've ever seen from student support this year. Even some of the bigger games were like not close to what I've seen, but we had some non-conference crowds for big games against like I believe it was Houston, that a Final Four team came here. Or no, it wasn't Houston. It was, I forget which school it was, but it was.
There was Baylor. There was
State
Houston. Iowa State.
Iowa State was okay,
but
crowd wise.
But there was still a lot of empty seats.
Yeah, there've been better crowds.
Was that not winter break?
I don't believe it was.
Okay.
No, I think that was in January.
Anyway,
or I don't remember.
Some sort
but
of break.
anyway, it's either NIL, which I don't think that's the problem. It's that they don't like playing for Bobby Hurley, or it's the arena situation and the lack of fan support for this program, because and I just think it's annoying every year to have to learn a completely different team going into the season. And I know that happens at a lot of schools, but I just feel like it happens to an exorbitant amount for ASU men's basketball.
Yeah, and you can also look at University of Miami, who went to the Final Four 2 years ago and then lost their entire roster. You can look at FAU, who also went to the Final
Their coach left, though.
Correct, but you're looking when Larinaga was still there 2 years ago, and they lost their entire roster. So
that was definitely NIL,
right?
Because they lost their biggest NIL booster guy.
Or it's that ASU's NIL can still be good and others can still be better. That's
another possibility. But again, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it happening every single year. And I'm not on the bandwagon of, oh, we need to fix this. NIL's bad. Transfer portal's bad. I don't think I don't think you can fix it, because basically anytime that anyone challenges this, some court somewhere finds that it is unconstitutional for the
players not to get paid,
or
for it to be oversight, or to have oversight on it.
Yeah, or to have oversight on the portal and all that stuff. Like it's just like any other student, honestly. Like if I wanted to go to 4 colleges in 4 years, I could go to 4 colleges in 4 years, and there's nothing that's stopping me there. And so I think it's just kind of that same way. It's like they're being treated more like normal students now. Like, oh, a student can get a job. A celebrity that makes a bunch of money off of endorsements can also be in college. So it's just but I'm not.
Also, they said that they were going to announce some renovations to DFA, quote, soon. That was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
In the coming months was still the word, within the last couple weeks.
I would really like to know what's going on there.
That needed to be announced before the portal opened.
I agree.
And I'm not saying that Graham misstepped with that or anything. I just think they're trying to find the funding, which is obviously fine, but that needed to happen. They needed to do everything they could to make that happen. Sure, some of these guys that they brought in from lower level schools are good scorers, but they needed to make sure that they kept some of these guys, and who knows, maybe Quaintance does return to ASU, but it's not looking good right now. They didn't even get Koa Pete. He's going down south. So,
yeah.
Damon, do you have anything on this?
Adam Miller and Amir Ali are probably the 2 biggest potential holdovers still. You feel really good about Ali sticking around because of the Jayon Pitt commitment.
I feel good about Trevor Best. He showed a lot during down the stretch of the season.
There's a few players here. Adam Miller still has eligibility because his freshman year was the COVID year, and he has had a medical red shirt since then as well, so he does get another year if he wants it. We'll see what he decides. But, those are the few guys that can stick around, and you feel good about Ali sticking around because his uncle is on the coaching staff, and he played with Jayon Pitt at Kenyon International together, and so I feel like that commitment can lead to Ali staying, but obviously you still never know.
What I want to say is that I'm not against, this is what I was trying to say earlier, I'm not against any of this stuff because I'm a forward-thinking person, but I think what you have to do is you have to get a coach like a Kenny Dillingham that is super charismatic and is somebody that is really going to make it hard for players to be like, oh, I really want to move on from this. Even if there's a little bit more money involved, you feel like that coach has your back so much that you just can't leave. And that's what you have to do in this era. And it can be done, as we've seen with the football program, because that team isn't going to be hard to preview at all, because we know who's coming back. We know those guys. It's most of the starters are coming back, and you can do that still. And so I just think ASU should look in that direction.
In terms of the women's team, they're connected with some high-level transfers that could possibly come in here. It goes with what you're saying about the high energy coaching now that Molly Miller's here and putting
Younger coach.
Yeah, putting some energy back into a program that desperately needed it. So we'll be able to, continue to follow that. No commits as of yet, but hopefully we'll be able to bring you some of that news next
I would
week.
like to say real quick that I'm just hoping that they get Gianna Neepkins. She was at Utah. She'd make this team go from like bottom of the Big 12 to a contender in the Big 12. That's how good she is. She is an incredible player. 19.3 points last season or this season, and nearly 45% on 3-point shooting, and she only played 30 minutes a game. So she averaged 19 points in 30 minutes a game. So she's been linked to ASU. I'm really, really hoping that they can get her because that will really energize that portion of the basketball program.
Two things before we go. Baseball is ranked, and they're playing excellent ball right now. We were skeptical about this team coming into the season. We thought they could take a leap, and it's looking like they are taking a leap. Currently second in the Big 12 with a big series against Arizona coming up this weekend. And then, of course, J.J. Van Niel, friend of the program, extended through 2029. Congratulations, J.J. Van Niel. The volleyball program's in a good spot right now. Hopefully both men's and women's basketball can get on that track as well. That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils. You can find all of Damon's articles on the Arizona Sports app and ArizonaSports.com, presented by Y-Refi. Thank you so much for watching. For Jesse Morrison, Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you soon.